Details of a big gun and ammunition find by police tops this edition of your Barbados Today evening update for Wednesday, September 13. Thanks for joining us. I am Fernella Wedderburn. Police seized 16 firearms and 593 assorted rounds of ammunition in the last 24 hours alone in 4 separate operations. Police spokesman, Acting Inspector Roland Cobbler, says 6 of those guns, as well as over 400 rounds of ammunition, were found at the Bridgetown port. The discovery came as a result of an intelligence operation involving customs enforcement officers and members of the anti-gun unit. Inspector Cobbler says a number of people are assisting police with their investigation. Now, the major find comes amidst a revelation by Attorney General Adriel Bradford today that cameras will soon be installed at the island's ports of entry in a bid to crack down on the current spate of gun violence in the country.
What we've done in the past, because there were some petty arguments, who can look at the cameras, what happens if an officer wants to do something private, all kind of pettiness, etc. Those days are past. It has to be done. Given the level of gun violence that we're seeing in this country, it has to be done, and we intend to get it done.
Meantime, a teenager charged in connection with the Kadooment Day shooting that injured almost 24 people has been remanded to Dodds Prison. 17-year-old Diego Rishon Wilson of Spencer's Gap, Baxter's Road, St. Michael, is alleged to have fired a gun on Spring Garden Highway on August 7 in a manner that placed 23 people in danger of death or serious bodily harm. Wilson, who was not required to plead to the indictable charges, appeared before Magistrate Christy Coffey Sargent with Arthur Holder and Shadia Simpson as his lawyers. He will return before the No. 1 District A Magistrates Court on September 26, along with his co-accused, 17-year-old Elijah Copeland of Chase Gap, Halls Road, St. Michael, Raheem Grimes of Chatterton Road, Carrington Village, St. Michael, also 17, and 22-year-old Tristan Aline of Westbury Road, St. Michael, who are already on remand. Still in news from the law courts, 20-year-old Jaquan Janil Rashid Stout of Kendall Hill B, Christchurch, was also remanded to prison today, charged with a number of offences, including those under the Firearms Act. Stout is charged with having possession of a firearm on June 2nd without a valid license and discharging it along Vauxhall in a manner that placed Anthony Chase and Andre Phillips in danger of death or serious bodily harm. He is also accused of wounding Raheem Farnham on the same day. Stout, who has Angela Mitchell-Gittings as his attorney, was not required to plead to the charges when he went before Magistrate Christy Coffey Sargent this afternoon. He will make his next appearance in the District B Magistrates Court on October 11. In other news, 17.5% of the Barbados population is now living in poverty. That's according to a new study described as the largest ever conducted in the country. The Barbados Survey of Living Conditions 2016-2017, which was officially launched at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Center this morning, also showed people who were not previously poor now in the poverty trap. Our Emmanuel Joseph tells us more.
The findings of the Inter-American Development Bank-funded research undertaken in collaboration with the Barbados Statistical Service between February 2016 and January 2017 were presented via Skype by IDB project leader and economics senior specialist Dita Mendoza. Addressing an audience that included Minister of Social Care and Constituency Empowerment Steve Blackett, Minister of Health John Boyce, Opposition Leader Mia Mortley, and representatives of various local non-governmental organizations and regional and international agencies, Mendoza said that the 17.5% poverty level represents a 2.4% increase over the past 6 years. He said that researchers also found that while extreme poverty was very low, non-extreme poverty had risen. Using a sample of 2,500 households that involved 7,100 Barbadians from the 11 parishes and applying poverty measurements by way of consumption per capita and consumption-based poverty lines, the survey considered such issues as health, education, employment, fertility, and migration. A graph presented by Mendoza showed that between 2010 and now, the vulnerable went up from 10.4% to 11%. Extreme poverty has significantly decreased. Now, former extreme poor people have migrated to non-extreme poor, resulting in a rise in non-extreme poor. But also some vulnerable ones have fallen into poverty, showing a rise in overall poverty. The vulnerability rate was mainly stable, but some non-vulnerable households have fallen into vulnerability. Emmanuel Joseph for Barbados Today.
In some off-the-field sports news now, tributes pour in for Barbadian jockey Darren Fortune, who passed away last Friday. Sports Minister Stephen Lashley, in extending condolences to his family, described Fortune's death as a great loss to horse racing, both in Barbados and Canada. The jockey, who has been plying his trade overseas for the past 20 years, fell off a horse that had collided with another at Toronto's Woodbine racetrack.
Good morning, Phillips & Company, may I help? Oh, certainly. One moment, please. Miss Phillips?
Yeah?
There's a lady on the line from the Nation newspaper who would like to speak with you.
The Nation? Will she go on?
Well, they're trying to sell us some ads.
Look, don't make me laugh this morning. Ads in the Nation? They're real expensive, and for what here, nobody ain't buying them papers no more. Nobody ain't want to steal news. I hear reading Barbados Today online for free. So I tell she thanks for calling, but no thanks. We just advertising Barbados Today, families. Tell she is Barbados Today all the way.
Okay, I'll pass on the message. Mom, are you still there? Oh, she put it down.
The Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chasney is confident that the Bordelais Correctional Facility can house some of the high-risk prisoners from hurricane-ravaged Turks and Caicos Islands and the British Virgin Islands. He says the decision will not put citizens at risk and was also the humanitarian thing to do under the circumstances.
I think the vast majority of St. Lucians would support me in the position from a humanitarian perspective. They are St. Lucians who live in Turks and Caicos. Would you want criminals to be running around putting the lives in danger of other St. Lucians? Not only that, when I look at what the British government has done for St. Lucia in our history and most recently, that's the humanitarian thing to be able to do. And no point are we putting St. Lucians at risk. I'm very comfortable that our security system is very, very good. We've been working very closely with the British authorities as to who the criminals are and what their backgrounds are, and to make sure the appropriate security systems are put in place to take care of it. And I think it's the humanitarian thing to do, and I think that the vast majority of St. Lucians would support me in that position.
On the international front, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the crisis involving minority Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar's Rakhine state has become catastrophic. According to the United Nations, more than 370,000 Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh to escape violence since August 25th. The latest outbreak of violence in the Rakhine state was sparked last month on government border posts. We get more in this CNN report.
Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims have raced across the border into Bangladesh in 2 weeks. They've been met with aid groups underprepared to help them.
So all humanitarian agencies are struggling with the increased number of refugees coming every day. Therefore we need to scale up our operations massively across all sectors, in health, in nutrition, water and sanitation, in education, child protection.
Refugees tell CNN the camps are already full.
We have only just arrived here. The military came into our village. They were slaughtering us and setting fire to our houses, so we had to leave.
Myanmar has said it's engaging in, quote, clearance operations following an attack by Rohingya militants that left 12 security officers dead.
It has taken us 7 days to get here, and we crossed the border by boat. If the military had seen us, they would have shot us.
A week ago, this was a forest. The Rohingya cleared it. The muddy banks are now a settlement for 100,000 of them. Even newer arrivals are living on the roadside.
It is very uncomfortable here. I cannot describe how horrible it is, but there is nowhere else, so we have to stay here.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. Also, subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're also on iZoom Media in bus terminals or screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you, as well as Mix 96.9 FM. There you can get all the very latest. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Good evening.